Hello, David here, and the project for today is making challah. Challah is a bread from Eastern Europe, Belarus, I guess, and it's kind of on the sweet side, but it's not sweet enough to be considered cake. We're going to start with 3/4 cup warm water plus 2 tablespoons of water. One and a half teaspoons of salt. One-quarter cup of sugar, 3 tablespoons of vegetable oil, two eggs, which is 6 tablespoons of liquid eggs, two teaspoons of yeast, I'd stir it up really good. Add 4 1/4 cups of flour, and then knead the dough for about 10 minutes. I wouldn't adjust moisture content until the 10 minutes is up, because the flour tends to absorb moisture. At that time you could decide if it's too dry, you can add a teaspoon or two of water, or if it's too wet you can add a teaspoon or two of flour. Okay, I've kneaded the dough for 10 minutes and now it's soft and smooth. What I'm going to do next is cover it with clear plastic and put the bowl in a warm place for about 1 hour. 45 minutes to an hour. Alright, it's been an hour. I'm going to divide the dough ball into 2 equal parts. I'm going to weigh it on the scale. After I divide the ball into 2 equal doughs, then I'm going to divide each separate ball into 6 equal balls each. Okay, I've got my 12 equal balls. I'm going to flatten each one out, roll the corners into the centers, and I'm going to roll them out into balls. By the way, after the yeast rose, I did not have to add any flour or water. The consistency was perfect. Once you roll them in the balls, let them sit for about 7 to 9 minutes, covered with a towel. Alrighty. I'll sprinkle a little flour on the table. Flatten out each ball. Then I'm going to roll it. Roll it into a cylinder. Doesn't want to roll. Maybe I'll let a little water in there. to roll it to 8 inches long. Now that you got all those rolled out to 8 inches, take the first one you did and roll that out to 12 inches. Let me try using wood. Works better rolling it out on a towel. And don't forget to taper the ends. Make it easier for braiding. Sprinkle some flour on the dough so that they don't stick together. Okay, we're going to get our 6 strips of dough ready for braiding. Get the ends together and just pinch them together like that. And then take the heel of your hand, kind of mash that in together. Okay, I got a grease cookie sheet. As you can see, I had to call in the cavalry to help me with the braiding. We moistened the ends, pinched them together, and rolled them under. That's the one I did. That's the one Barb did. Next we brush the top with the egg wash. And of course I don't have a brush, so I made one out of a paper towel. Will it work? Yeah, I don't know if it's going to work. Don't laugh. It's not funny. Okay, that's my little brush. It's working pretty good. Now we're going to cover the loaves with plastic. Got some plastic here. Spread a little oil on the underside of the plastic so it doesn't stick to the loaves. Now let it rest for 1.5 to 2 hours and then do another egg wash. It's been 2 hours. This didn't rise very much. Either my house is real cold, which it is. In a warmer house, you probably could let it sit for 1.5 hours. Or my yeast is jacked up. I use a dry yeast, and the yeast is probably 10 years old, and it's been sitting in the cupboard, so I think next time I'm going to have to get some fresher yeast. Anyway, I'm going to coat it again. I'm going to put some egg wash on it with my custom-made brush. I got the oven preheated to 350. Sprinkle some sesame seeds on it. I'm going to bake it for 25 minutes. Been 25 minutes. Looks like the loaves rose a little bit while they were in the oven, but I'm still getting some new yeast. This video's meaningless without a taste test, right? Kind of doughy. I'd have to try this again. Anyway, I want to thank you guys and gals for watching. Don't forget to help my algorithms by hitting like, subscribe, and ring that bell for more mediocre videos from davidgpo. So that issue with the yeast was really bugging me, and I couldn't end the video right there. I had to do an analysis of the yeast. A friend of mine told me that there was a way of testing yeast to see if it's active or dead. So I went out, bought a jar of yeast, some Red Star, not a sponsor, made a loaf of rye bread in the bread machine, and it looks pretty good. It rose higher than usual than what I've been doing. As a matter of fact, in my last batch of rye bread, I wanted to get more volume, so I added more flour and a little more water, same amount of yeast. And what happened was there was a little more mass to the loaf, but it didn't rise any much higher, and it didn't finish. It was doughy. I should have known there was a problem with the yeast back then. But anyway, I'm going to test the yeast, see what we have. I'm going to use a teaspoon of the new yeast. Teaspoon of sugar. Put some warm water in there. Not too hot. Two tablespoons. I'm not going to fast forward. I'm just going to let it go at regular time. I'm going to cap this, put it in the freezer because the jar says to refrigerate after opening. And I noticed on my old yeast that that's set to refrigerate after opening. And I've been keeping it in the cupboard all this time. This one, which I haven't used in a couple of years, that expired in 2019, 3 years ago. This one expired 4 years ago. I should have known there was a problem with this because when I smelled the opening of the bag, it kind of smelled like a sumo wrestler's armpit. So there was something sour in there. And I'm not going to buy so much yeast anymore. Just going to buy it nothing larger than these 4-ounce jars. That's Fleischmann's, not a sponsor. What's going on here? I am going to stop the camera and give this 5 minutes to rise. See what happens. It's been 5 minutes. There's a small amount of bubbles on the top. I expected more foaming for the fresh yeast. Let's try the 3-year-old yeast. I'll check that in 5 minutes. It's been 5 minutes on the 3-year-old yeast. I think there's a little activity in there, but I don't think there's that much. I notice on the jar, not only does it say refrigerate after opening, it says use within 6 months. And I had no idea about that. So I'm definitely tossing that. Now I'm going to try that older Red Star. This stuff, which is 4 years old. I'll let that sit for 5 minutes. Okay, this is the 4-year-old Red Star after 5 minutes. Yeah, there was some activity in there, but obviously it's not enough based on the results I'm getting. So I'm going to toss this. I'm going to toss the 3-year-old stuff. From now on, I'll keep everything in the freezer. And then I'll toss it after, well, whatever the label says. Because the new stuff says to toss after 4 months. Here's a fresh Red Star. Let's give that one a little time. 5 minutes with the fresh yeast. You can see a layer of fine foam on the top. I think I'll give it another 10 or 15 minutes, see what happens. Here's the fresh yeast, 15 minutes. You can really see it foaming. It's really building up quite a head. That's only 2 tablespoons of warm water. As a control, I ran the 4-year-old yeast for 15 minutes, and you can see there's very little action. There is some action, but very little. Not enough for a successful bread making venture. Thank you.